Uzbek. In my country, the average wage is $5 per day. Many people turn to alcohol to escape the misery of everyday life. What do you think is the solution to escape depression in such conditions? What? Oh my God! You're asking me to solve depression. Great, great. Okay, solving depression. Um, solving depression. Let me think. First of all, okay. First of all, it really depends on the person. Okay, there's not one solution to everybody for everyone. Thirdly, there are some people who are going through things that not being depressed would be odd. You know, it would be not odd. That's not the right word. It would be very. It would be bad advice for somebody. It would be untasteful for us to suggest how to get over. Yes, untasteful for us to suggest how for them not to be upset, given that the external factors making them upset are so strong that shifting your mindset about it or thinking the right way about something is beyond useless. Okay, so for example, if the source of your misery is, I don't know, if somebody just took out your entire family, then there's going to be very difficult for us to come in and be like, I don't know, think about it this way. Maybe you'll feel better, right? So it really depends on what conditions we're talking about, right? If it's the lack of hope, if it's just the lack of opportunity and stuff like that, that is up, making somebody upset. And okay, and also there are some sources of depression where it's internal, right? And there's just your brain is working against you, and you might need professional help, both either maybe even medical help. So there are people who are in conditions that they advice on how to think about things and frame things in a different way is also useless because they are suffering from something internally, chemically, some imbalances, something that advice from somebody that doesn't have any professional expertise on how to deal with that is also could be considered useless, or maybe unless you're like referring them to professional, you know, suggestion people with more expertise, like if you actually like quoting somebody and being skeptical about it and not knowing if it's applied to it, there are ways to do that, right? So putting those two aside, so we are putting people who are being affected by something external beyond us being able to, the best way to address that is removing those external factors, okay? And there are people who are suffering from some imbalances or something internal, maybe chemical, maybe like that might need professional medical help. And for those people also, framing things differently or looking at things differently is also useless, right? But for other people, that are those two things don't apply to them, I think, again, this is my personal view, which is I am not an expert, and this could be completely wrong. I think whether you're depressed about, if it's not those two things, then whether you're not, when you're happy, sad, depressed, or not depressed in that situation. And I know depressed has a technical definition, and we are just using it in the way people use it in day-to-day life, not in the medical, like I know there's a difference between misery, between sadness and depression, but we're not talking medical terms. We're just talking just average daily life usage of these terms. So for those people, I think being happy or not happy could be just the way you look at things. You could, things that makes you sad, if you properly frame them and those events in relationship to an identity that you have built for yourself, and changing the goals that you have in life based on what is available to you, could be like, if the current of the river is not letting you swim towards the destination that you want, maybe picking up a different destination would be the most ideal situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's see, you're swimming in a river and there's, like, I don't know, a tree with fruits that you want, and you're trying to swim towards it, but the current is so strong that there's no way for you to get there, right? You could spend the rest of your life just swimming towards it and just wondering why you're not going to get there. Or you could look at a different tree that is more in the direction of the current of the river, right? And be happy that you're getting closer to it, right? So another thing that I advise is that a lot of times sadness and depressions comes from what you compare yourself to. Okay, so a man with a hut in a land where everyone is homeless feels rich, very rich. But a man with a hut in a land that everyone has a mansion feels depressed and poor and unfortunate, right? Both the same person with the same thing could be feel happy, very fortunate, or very unfortunate, depending on what you compare yourself to. Okay. However, this also ignores the fact that a lot of our happiness comes from becoming better, making progress, right? So one thing that a lot of people have noticed is that it's not happiness doesn't actually come from getting the things that you thought you needed. Happiness comes from moving towards getting the things that you wanted, right? This is why sometimes, I don't know, people who win the lottery or become celebrities and become rich really fast become depressed, because they get the things that they wanted and then they don't see anything else to move towards to, and life becomes meaningless, right? So it's the step-by-step progress of, so it's true that you could, like, make yourself feel better by comparing yourself to what should be your point of reference for you to gain the most amount of happiness from life is yourself. Okay, so I could compare myself to, let me actually rephrase this. There's two points of reference. Okay, if you compare yourself to A and you see how far away you are from A, and focus on the distance, then you are going to become depressed because you're so far behind. Like, let's say you have a goal and you want to get to a place, and then you see you're here and your life is here, but the life that you want is over there, and you look at the gap that is in between, and that's the best source of depression. Okay, that's depression fuel. Okay. However, for you to be able to have a goal to move towards, you do need to look at an A. You do need a North Star, if you will, right? Something to aspire you to move towards the direction, right? So this seems like a contradiction, because you want, the source of happiness is having a direction to go towards to, right? So you need to compare yourself to something external, but the distance between where you are and that external ideal situation is also a source of depression. So it's like damned if you do and damned if you don't, right? So the solution is a combination of having a North Star, but for you to have a direction. But while you're moving in that direction, instead of focusing on the distance between yourself and that North Star, and like think about a North Star, you will never land on a North Star. It's supposed to be a thing that gives you direction, not a thing that you think like you will ever be achieved. So make that North Star something that you know you will never be able to achieve, so that you don't look at the distance between you and it as a sign of failure. Make it so perfect that you will realize how ridiculous it is for you to even compare the distance that you have with it, right? So it will become a guide in your life. However, what you compare yourself to as a source of happiness or progress is yourself yesterday or last week, preferably last year, because when you're making progress, there are good days and there are bad days, right? So there are days that you're not going to make progress, and you're going to go backwards. So maybe compare yourself to last month or last year and see how much progress you have made. That should be the source. So use the North Star as a direction, and then use yourself as a comparison to see how much progress you made. That's the best source of happiness, okay? And here's the thing. Unlike a North Star, you could pick other stars, okay? So just see the direction that you're going, and if it's making you happy and if it's working, then keep going in that direction. But if it's not, you could pick a different star, right? See what life has made available to you. And there are so much source of happiness in this world that is so, like, all of you guys here have access to internet, okay? You guys are watching YouTube, okay? That means that you have access to more knowledge and entertainment than any generation that has came before you in the history of mankind, okay? The amount of entertainment and information you have, you could spend a lifetime just looking at what you're learning and comparing yourself to what you knew last year and what you know now. And that could be by itself such source of pleasure, and it doesn't require any money. Like, sometimes I feel like I shouldn't have excuses for sadness, because we're just so goddamn lucky, right? I know that's easier said than done, okay? Like, don't go blaming yourself for being like, well, then why am I sad? There's something wrong with me if I'm sad, okay? This is just things to think about to try to become more happy, but in practice, I know it's more difficult than that. Anyways.
Hey guys, if you're a fan of Blasphemy and Sexy Callie, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our Blasphemous Art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe, link in the description below.